birds flying high. You know how I feel. Sun in the sky. You know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by. You know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.
If you're going to start off a season of oval racing, you might as well stick with the classics. And nothing is more classic than the high banks of Daytona. Even after 65 years, it still thrills fans and drivers alike. Will it manage to deliver once again? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round one of the Goat Locker Racing Truck Series, presented by Jam Printing and Promotions. And you'll see it all live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director Eddie Smith, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Well, this is going to be an exciting one, starting off the truck series here. Hopefully, we should be having a little bit of a chat with Patrick Drabick and Jamie Barkas here shortly. But before we get to that, why don't we talk to Joey a little bit about the truck that we are racing here today.
Yeah, we're in the NASCAR Truck Series. We've got the different ladder series of the NASCAR trucks. And not only there, but we are at Daytona International Speedway. Joe, you were mentioning just how big Daytona really is. It's a great place to kick it off here. Round one is going to be 60 laps around this place, a track that everybody is very, very familiar with. And these trucks that you were just talking about, they're very comfortable underneath the driver. So they're relatively easy to drive. They're easy to draft off of here. That's exactly what we're going to be seeing, is a lot of drafting games being played around this 2.5-mile super speedway.
Well, and that's what we love to see, because it provides plenty of fun action, that super speedway racing. This track, obviously, is the traditional start to the season, and you can see it here in the schedule as such. Phoenix Raceway going to be our next one on the way out, and then it's off to Dover on the East Coast once again before we'll hop down to Homestead, Miami. Nice little spread that they've got. They're even heading over to Watkins Glen for a road course round and going old school a little bit later on, you see, with North Wilkesboro. And that is just the main season. The playoffs will begin once we hit March, where it'll all be down to the championship. It does look like we've caught up with Jamie Barkus and Patrick Drabick. So let's have a quick talk to them about what exactly Goat Locker Racing is all about. Guys, what exactly is your goal with this series?
Well, one, thanks for inviting us. We are super excited to be on podium this year. And really, we could talk about the racing and the truck series and all that stuff, but really, our goal with Goat Locker Racing as a whole is we're out here making a difference with our nation's warriors and first responders. This league was founded on helping veterans, helping active duty military, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, just to give them a place to come, build a sense of community and really belong to something so that they can come heal, be a part of this, and just escape the day-to-day stuff. I mean, we all fight the struggle of PTSD and mental health issues. I think everybody knows 22 veterans a day, on average, commit suicide. And we wanted to find a way to combat that, but in a much different way. So myself and my, as I like to call him, my hetero life mate, Jamie, we've been friends for almost 30 years. We were stationed together, founded Goat Locker Racing to do just that, and I can tell you the results, the outpouring is just been absolutely amazing.
Well, it obviously is affected a lot of people, and I think what you guys are doing are fantastic about bringing this opportunity to veterans and their families. Uh, where do you see this going? And honestly, how long have you been doing it now?
Well, we got a lot of goals. We have three main goals here in Goat Locker Racing. One is to continue with our online racing league and allow people to come into this and really enjoy it and experience it. Two, and we just got the funding in from Right Now Roofing to be able to provide the sim equipment free of charge to a veteran. So right now, roofing jumped on board. We have a lot of great sponsors. I could talk forever, but they have fully funded our first sim rig that we are going to provide free of charge to to a veteran. And our third main goal is we're going to put together a mobile simulator to where we can take this out to different events, racetracks, get-togethers, you name it, we're going to be there to be able to show people what we're doing. We plan on continuing to grow this, and if you followed Goat Locker Racing over the past 2 years, we started off very small, and now we're at the point we've got some phenomenal sponsors that have come on board that have helped support us. We have more and more that continue to come on board. Veterans for Life Foundation, Jam Printing and Promotions is back again this year to help us out. Cruising Classics out of Columbus, Ohio. Redbeard Design has done all the Goat Locker Racing stuff for us. I mean, I can't express enough how much outpouring there has been, and how much people are wrapping their arms around what we're doing and appreciate what we're doing. So we're going to continue to grow it. We're going to continue not just to grow it here on iRacing, but to grow it for our communities.
Well, I can't thank you both for enough for coming in and telling us a little bit about this. I'm sure we'll talk to you more throughout the season. Best of luck also out on the track and with helping put on a successful show this season.
Well,
Well,
thank
man,
you guys
again,
for
we
having us
appreciate
up
it.
here.
Yeah.
Right. Go Yeah, just want to thank you guys for what you're doing to help us move this forward. This is an awesome experience for us to be able to put this product on podium esports. So thank you very much for that. And I also want to shout out uh, Taylor Kitchen and her podcast Above the Yellow Line. She's not really a sponsor for us, but she has been a tremendous ambassador for Goat Locker Racing. So I definitely want to mention her and all the work she's doing to promote us as well. So without that and without you guys and all of our sponsors, this we would still be just an idea that we had a couple years ago. So we can't thank you guys enough.
Well, Jamie, since we do still have a couple minutes before you guys got to go off and qualify, and I mentioned you two are going to be racing as well. What are you expecting the racing to be like in this series? I assume you're all really familiar with many of these drivers.
Yeah, for most part, we are familiar with them. They're guys in this series that have been here since we started Goat Locker Racing, the Goat Locker OGs, we call them. But there is an influx of new people that have come over since we've changed up the format this season. So I'm hoping it's our traditional Goat Locker Racing Truck Series type race where there's a lot of green flag racing, very few cautions. One wrinkle we've done this year is taking away that fast repair, so that crutch is no longer available. I'm hoping guys adjust quickly to that, and I think it will go smoothly because, like I said, most of our races, a lot of them go green to checkered. That's routine for us. That's not unusual. So I'm hoping tonight is going to be pretty good. I'm hoping they take the cues from last night. The ARCA Series race really set the bar for this week. I think we had 2 cautions total in that race, so that was phenomenal for Daytona. I expect to get the same tonight.
Fantastic. Since we know that Daytona can be, a little bit of a gamble sometimes, and everybody's got a pretty good shot at trying to get the win here. Put your chip down on the roulette board. Where do you guys think you're going to finish tonight, Jamie?
15 will be in front.
All right, Patrick.
Well, I mean, Go Locker Racing's winning this race tonight. Whether it's the 07, the 15, Ryan Pendleton in that 23,
Yeah.
or Cody McElwain in that number 6. The Veterans for Life Foundation team has a stout team as well with Jake Ellingson, Jamie Mullins, and and Jamie Perkins as well. So they've got a pretty stout team, and Brandon Evans. So, but Go Locker Racing's bringing home this win tonight. Promise you that.
I like that.
Just to take any surprises away for you guys. If you see us lined up, just like Pat said, the 07 to 15 to 23 to 27, even the 66 and the 5, or I'm sorry, the 6. If we're lined up, whoever's in front is going to be who is in front. We will not fight each other for the win. We will make sure one of us wins that race.
I love that sense of teamwork. It's no surprise coming from the armed forces. So, again, you guys are awesome, and I love what you've set up. Hoping to talk to you more later.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Jamie Barkus and Patrick Drabick joining us there to talk a little bit about what this series is all about. But we can talk a little bit more about the racing side of things here, Joey. Starting off with these trucks, 3 different kinds of trucks that they're racing here. Obviously, all in the same class, so all pretty much the same under the hood, but just different makes.
Yeah, that's all that it really is. You got the Chevy, the Ford, and the Toyota. Those are the 3 different trucks, but they are the NASCAR Truck Series here in iRacing. You got the stats right on your screen. Big old rumbly boy of a 650 horsepower V8, that 4-speed dog box transmission. They are quite heavy, well over 3,000 pounds in weight, so it's more like a production car if you're familiar with kind of weights that go on these days. Dimensions, and then the iRacing series that you can go and race these in yourself. If you like what you see on the screen, you can go out on iRacing, and they have the Truck Series Class C, so you can go out there and race exactly what you are seeing on the screen tonight.
Absolutely. In fact, trucks tend to be extremely popular. I can tell you that here on iRacing on the oval side. As for the track itself, I've already talked a little bit about Daytona. 65 years now that it has seen racing since 1959. 31 degrees ever since the start of it, at least when this was built. It first started on the beach before they created this track just a little bit over the way in the same town of Daytona. And the rest is history. It became, at the time, the biggest and fastest track. It has since been surpassed by Talladega, but this tri-oval layout has definitely set the standard, and one of the few super speedways out there in the world at 2.5 miles. It is big. The speeds are high, and the stakes are just as high. So drivers will have to stay on their toes on this one. Of course, we also have our race details for this, Joey. Why don't we run down what the drivers are going to be up against in the event itself?
60 laps around Daytona, which might actually end up being a little bit more. We'll get to that. 150 miles by that 60 lap count. Pit road speed is 55 miles an hour. green, white, checkered attempts, 2 of those. So that's what I was talking about. We might actually do more than 60 laps here. There are no fast repairs like we heard the guys saying earlier. So if you pick up any sort of damage on the truck, well, you are going to have to live with it. And here at Daytona, aerodynamics are incredibly important. You want to make sure that everything is as clean as possible. The car setups, it is a custom fixed setup. So that means all of the drivers have the same thing underneath them. It's not like one driver has a faster truck than the other because of ride heights or sway bars or spring rates. Everybody's got the same stuff. 100% fuel level, so they're not BOP and bopping that fuel at all. And the tire sets that are available, 4 of them, okay? Usually that means you start on a sticker set and there will be 3 sets available in the pits. Usually that's how it works. But at Daytona, it's not really about the tire game here with the strategy. It's more about that track position and your drafting buddies.
Exactly. So it'll be more about all the team tactics than your tactics in pit lane so much, although it will come down some to that. We'll see. If it stays green, then you're going to have to try and make sure and time it around to those who are near you. Barkas is out on track trying to qualify, solo qualifying, of course, at a super speedway, so that nobody can game anything out there. Jonathan Cofield currently is our quickest at a 52.051 with Bethea currently sitting on the outside of that front row. We're still waiting for maybe about 10 or so cars to try and put a lap down.
Here in qualifying, you do have those 2 laps like you were saying, so drivers are going to be using both of those laps. Typically here at Daytona, your warm-up lap and even your first timed lap, you'll see the drivers really just kind of ride it along the wall. That's the longest way around this place. It's not going to provide the fastest lap time, but it will provide the fastest top speed for when you go for that final lap, when you go and paint it down on that yellow line for your Q lap.
All right, Regis Clark is on his way out. So this is the warm-up lap, and he's going to have to wait all the way here until the backstretch. You'll see a blue cone that he has to stay to the inside of, actually blue line even on the ground, that he is not allowed to go above that yellow line until he crosses that blue line there on the backstretch, and then he can get above there. Let's see if he goes up to the high side to get this one up to speed. And no, he's kind of right in the middle, not really doing anything to get himself up to tremendous speed, but kind of surprised to see him not try and use everything from the get-go.
Well, what I'm actually more concerned about here, Joe, is just the time limit in qualifying, because I'm looking, we're already 4.5 minutes through this 5-minute session, and a lap time is about 52 seconds here for these trucks around Daytona. So I'm not sure if they have it set up that they can complete the lap, but I don't think he's going to be able to put this one on the board.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. He started way too late for anything. In fact, Ellingson is the last car who has set a time and will be able to set a time, because the clock has now hit 0. He did not improve on his second lap, sadly, and puts himself into 15th, which means our grid is now set for the first race of the season. It is Jonathan Cofield who managed to stay up on pole position. Jamie Mullins will begin next to him. Tanner Bethea will be in the 3rd spot. And then it is Brandon Evans in 4th, followed by Jeremy Gardner in 5th, as Jamie Barkas is going to be starting off P6. Patrick Drabick will be right next to him. Very consistent qualifying between the two of them, as George Jewell will start from 8th position. And then Michael Kostek will be in 9th. Ryan Pendleton will round out your top 10.
And then Stephen McDonald here in 11th, James Goshen in 12th, Timothy Stubblefield in 13th, Daniel Cunningham starting in 14th, Doug Ellingson, you were just mentioning, in the 58 starts 15th, Jacob Ellingson starts in 16th, right next to him there, Charles Phelps in 17th, Alan Marshall 18th, Will Bethea in 19th, and Cody McElwain in 20th.
21st goes to Mark McCrary. Then it is Kyle Plumstead in the 22nd position. Regis Clark starts on the inside of the next row in 23rd, followed by Tommy Cook. The quarter century mark will be Trevor McManus. Then you've got James Kaufman, 26th. After that, it is Mike Browning and Matt Knights, Davy Jones, and Jamie Perkins. for your 30 truck field starting this race. That'll be plenty to give us a lot of fun out on the track. And it is a bit warm out there, I will say. So you don't want to. I know you said tires aren't huge here, but you don't want to be whipping that thing around too much because I'm sure it'll get slippery if you're not careful.
Yeah, and you never want to abuse anything in iRacing. I'm looking, it says 78-degree ambient temperature, 95 degrees on the track. So it is trending a little bit on the warmer side. I do see that we are racing on iRacing Day, May 15th. Oh, and it looks to be in the evening, about dinner time out there in the sim. So I wouldn't expect the temperatures to be rising at all. I mean, they should stay pretty stable from here on out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with the fixed setup as well that they should be able to hold their own. We get one pace lap, and then we will be underway for this first round. And thankfully, everybody gets off with off the line without issue. Although I do see that Kyle Plumstead, Mike Browning, and Matt Knights did not grid up for some reason. So not sure if they had some sort of problem or if they have been sent to the back of the field at the start. But if they start from the pit lane, then they're going to find themselves having trouble catching up and hope for a yellow at the beginning. And in fact, I do see that Mike Browning may have had a disconnect issue. So unfortunately suffering the perils of racing on the internet.
Well, and I see Brandon Evans. That's the big shocker for me, who was gridded in the 4th position. I see him in the chat that he was not paying attention. He might have been off, getting ready for the race, dropping sort of whatever weight that he can. He missed the grid time back there. Such a shame for the 39.
Well, he and Mike Browning are going to have to try and work together as best they can. I do see Matt Knights has now also plopped himself onto pit lane. So they're all going to have to try and use the power of numbers as best they can to try and find some speed, hope that they can maybe catch up somehow, or cross their fingers that we get a caution. Speaking of those cautions, if we do get one before the first 30 laps are over, that's going to make it nice and easy to try and make it to the end on a single stop, or at least try and spread it out over various pit stops. But if it goes green through the whole way, we could have a small pit window here. Pace car is in, and the green flag is out immediately for Cofield. They start to wind up and take off on the first lap of the season.
We're going to accelerate up through the gears here at Daytona International Speedway. It takes usually a full lap, if not longer, to get these trucks all the way up to speed. Still 2 by 2 from the top 10 all the way through the entire field right now. You see the high line starting to fall back just a little bit. That's pretty typical in the turns. Should have some momentum down the back straightaway.
Yeah, I'm sure once they get fully up to speed, then we'll get a real feel for what line is going to be working, which one's going to be moving out here. Definitely looks like they're spread out a little bit at the back. I guess everybody's just trying to position themselves, wait to see how it pans out at the front, and take it from there. I can tell you that Knights, Browning, and Evans are out on track, but they are not together at all. So someone's got to tell them they need to group up here quickly.
Yeah, that's part of the buddy game here at Daytona. The more buddies you have with you, the faster you go, and that's what we're going to be talking about, the organization between these lanes. Right now, really well organized throughout the entire field, but I see these top 3 on the low lane. They're starting to be a little bit more aggressive. They're closing things in. They're trying to push their way clear of that top lane.
In fact, Tanner is pushing really hard for only the second lap on Cofield, giving him a really good shove as we hop on board with him, looking out the driver's perspective onto the tri-oval once more. Let's see if he does it through this portion. Usually you don't want to push as much in the tri-oval. He's definitely getting right on top of him.
And the reason for not wanting to push in the tri-oval is it's not banked as much as the corners. It's only got about half the banking that we have here in 1 through 4. So the trucks, they're extremely light on the back end. That's why it's kind of the danger area that if you get somebody in the wrong spot, you see a lot of big accidents.
He's going to close right up on the 53 once again. And yeah, he's trying to push as much as he can. Now, the other thing that he does have to be concerned about here is if he keeps pushing and getting right up underneath that bumper, I have seen these cars overheat before.
And the other kind of story to it is there's a couple versions of bump drafting here in iRacing. You can go up there and be really aggressive and slam that bumper. What I've seen be more efficient is you kind of go up there and push that bubble of air. The closer you are without actually impacting the car, it seems to get that momentum faster.
See if he's got the touch then. But on the high side, despite all the pushing, it seems Jamie Mullins is sticking with him in that number 66. He's got Barkas behind him in the 15 and hasn't been as aggressive up till now. Now he's giving him a nice push as you see him give a little wiggle to the back of that car as he maybe was a tad rough on that one, but was unfortunately falling off the back of it after he made that push. So now you can see the effect of that. The 53 and the 1 are significantly far ahead.
And I think that's just kind of the rubber band effect between the different lanes here at Daytona. We only have 2 going on right now. So typically the lower lane through the turns, it's the shorter distance around. So it prevails through the turns, while the straightaways, typically the higher lane carries the higher top speed, the more momentum. So on the straightaways, specifically the back straightaway, that top lane, it kind of gets all that momentum back.
I have to say I like what I'm seeing so far, Joey, because sometimes you can see the starts of these super speedway races and drivers are chopping back and forth between lanes and being really dicey from the get-go. Everybody seems really calm. They know it's a long race, and it looks like they're just kind of letting it all build.
I'm going to agree with you here, although I'm going to knock on this wood desk that I've got because things can turn around very quickly. We've only come into complete lap number 5 of 60. These are these 3 cars that you had mentioned earlier that did not start with the rest of the pack. Browning, Knights, and Brandon Evans. They have now grouped up, but 3 cars are not running as fast as the big group.
Well, and to give you an idea of the difference between working in such big numbers and just these 3, the front of the group, all their fastest laps are 48.2, 48.1, that range. Browning, Knights, and Evans, you're looking at 49.4 and 52.1 for Evans. That is frighteningly slow.
It is. I mean, a second a lap around this place. And it's not like this group is doing intense bump drafting. It's just they're more well organized. You got, 25 trucks in a 2x2 line. It is just a whole lot of air moving really fast.
Exactly. And they're going to cross the line once again to now start lap 7 of this 60-lap race. And top line starting to move quite a bit more now as Jamie Mullins got enough of a push. He's now leading the pack. Doesn't jump down to the bottom. The 15 of Barkas is sticking with him. And they're going to fall back a little bit on the back straight once again with that longer line around the outside, and it switches back. But now we're starting to see that top line, I think, really kind of get into their own groove.
Now, I was kind of curious to see going into turn 1 that last lap, Jonathan Cofield did not have the push from that number 1 car behind, and that's really what gave all that momentum to that top lane. But now right in front of Patrick Drebeck here, you can see the bump drafting through the tri-oval starting to get a little bit more aggressive. It's only lap number 8 out here. I wonder when that boiling point is going to happen. When we were talking before the show, they were saying a lot of these races go green all the way. And Joe, you were saying everybody is well-mannered. I'm still seeing it, but eventually, super speedway racing, there's a tax to pay.
Usually. I wonder if we could check on a little bit at the back of this group. You mentioned it goes down to about 25th or so. Trevor McManus, it looks like Roger Clark is kind of fallen back a little bit, and very intentionally so. In fact, far enough back that they've lost the slipstream. I'm not sure why they've chosen to do this, but they're now also going to be in the same spot as those back in 27th, 28th, and 29th.
So there's a couple reasons to lose the draft. Now, you don't want to do what these 3 drivers have done and pretty much exclude yourself from the race and put yourself in no man's land. You typically want to have 5 to 10 guys drop back with you. But the theory here is that if there's a big group in front of you, you want to have enough time to react if there's a big accident. They're simply laying a safety net. However, their safety net might be a little bit too far back.
Yeah, I wonder if it was just maybe being too cautious as they were trying to set it all up. And unfortunately lost it all. So they're probably going to be picked up now by that other group, but it's going to be a long time. That group is already more than half a lap back, it looks like. They have significantly fallen off of them, considering they had to start out from the pit lane essentially when the green flag was thrown, and then they had to get up to speed on top of it, as everybody else was already pacing much faster than them when they hit the gas pedal. But still side by side, your leader up at the front of the field is a mix of Gardner in the 42 on the high side and Cofield on the bottom in the number 53. I think Gardner actually took over from Mullins, who has dropped in behind him. So I'm not sure when that happened.
Yeah, definitely Jeremy Gardner in that 42, or I should say in the number 5 machine on your screen. It's the number 42 on your timing and scoring pylon. He got to the lead of that top lane, and he's starting to get some really aggressive pushes from that number 66. That's Jamie Mullins, who was leading that top lane before. And you see just kind of the weaving back and forth that the 66 is doing all over the bumper, trying to transfer that energy.
And we heard that there was going to be some teammates working together. It does look like this group is pretty concerned about trying to stick with one another, because there hasn't been a lot of swapping around. Like you said, there has been hard pushing to get a better pace at the beginning of this race, knowing that they can't split themselves. And kind of one of the things that happens when you have this fixed setup series. So interesting that they are being so aggressive, trying to get these faster laps up at the top. They're going to cross the line once again. We are already up to lap 12.
And really good momentum from the top side here. Jeremy Gardner is actually going to clear the low lane, as well as the 66 of Jeremy Mullins. They opt to stay on the top side, so they are going to be working together. They say, you know what, you guys can have the bottom. Cofield, Bethea, that is your area. We'll take the top side of the racetrack. And just as I say that, things really starting to split up, shake up. We had a 3-wide moment, but all of that momentum in the top lane, it is gone.
It looked like Mullins maybe got into the back corner of that 42. So he decided that, or number 5, and decided that it wasn't worth risking that big accident. This is definitely the most broken up we have seen it. Now we're starting to see some drivers kind of switch around, figure out which lane has a better option. Top is coming back at them. They've regrouped, but it looks like a much longer line on the bottom.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to see what the number 5 was doing there of Gardner, because it almost seemed like he intentionally lifted. Now he's going to get another car parked right in front of him on that top lane. I believe that's the 7 car of Patrick Drabick. So he's moving his way up to the front, and now that they're on their back straightaway, they are hooked up in the top lane, got the momentum in the organization one more time.
It's the only time you can cut in line and get away with it. And this time for the 07 actually works out pretty well, because he is picked up by the 5 and is pushed to the front. Sometimes I've seen that go horribly wrong, though, and the line kind of just decide, no, we don't want to push you along, and kind of move to the side.
Well, I think the biggest, I'm going to call it a shakeup, right, is that you've got your organization and the trucks that you've been working with, and when you purposely kind of balk it out to get that momentum, you often get a new truck leading that lane. Now, that's not such a bad deal when it's Patrick Drabick out there, somebody you can count on, but it is still a variable. It's something new in front, something unaccounted that you haven't seen yet. You just have to be careful of any introduced variables.
Gardner now could have jumped down, but he decided not to. He's going to continue to push on this high side. Wonder if we're going to see these 3 drivers here on the top side try and cut in front once they get Mullins clear, because they are making more and more great progress. My goodness, they are hauling now.
It's all about that organization. I was talking about the different types of bump drafting, but look at the low lane now. They are really organized through 1 and 2, what carries that momentum down the back straightaway, but I expect to see Drabick and Gardner really start to push it out. I feel the more aggressive you are with the bump drafting, the less speed you actually get. It's all about going up there and just staying 1 millimeter off of that bumper.
Checking to see if I can find Gardner's team here. and who he is working with, MT Motorsports. So he's not on the same team as Drabic. Uh, and trying to see if we've got some of our teammates in that front group. I know that we had Barkus and Drabic together, but once Patrick moved to the high side, kind of let him go and is now trying to see if he can do better in clear air. They even out for the first time, and now they're starting to find each other a little bit harder to stay ahead of.
The one thing that makes me a little bit nervous about this outside line here, Joe, is about third, fourth line back, the number 66 car, as well, I believe it might be the number 85 or the 15 back here. They're just trying to search for some clean air visually. It can be really tough to look through the spoiler, look through a truck in front of you, especially when you're multiple lanes deep. Oh no, there's a problem with Bethea. You were talking about the overheating issues, taking the number 1 right out of the race.
Just didn't give it enough air, unfortunately. And they do have the warning light on the dash, but I mean, if you're not looking at it, I'm assuming it could be easy to miss.
I would assume so. You're probably so focused on everything that's right in front of you, pushing. The number 1 was the most aggressive pusher we've seen all day. He's been tucked up underneath a spoiler the entire time. Lap 17 already got our first Rumbly Boy retirement.
And we mentioned earlier there is no spare car in this series. So that means that whereas in the past they probably would have been able to hop back in if they blew an engine. Now, if you blow an engine, that's pretty much night done. You can try and repair it, but that usually takes close to an hour here on iRacing before they can plop the new virtual one in the truck and then send you back out.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a shame, but I think that if you are a competitor, right, and you just saw that number 1 go down onto the apron, by the way, tip of the cap to Bethea for getting it down onto the apron, not involving anybody else, because look, we still have our entire draft pack here, so great job avoiding any sort of incident. But if you were a competitor and you saw that smoke, you better go down and check your own temperatures, make sure that you are in the green, because you don't want it to happen to you.
Absolutely. And there he is still trundling along towards pit lane, thankfully, well off of the racing line. We mentioned it earlier. Some of our wonderful sponsors includes Jam Printing and Promotion. Since forming in 2013, Jam has contributed printing and promotional sponsorships to more than 60 local nonprofits with a primary focus on organizations that assist veterans, women, and children. They have been with Goat Locker Racing since the very beginning. Local and veteran certified, when they do well, they do good in the community. So a big thank you to them for help sponsoring the series and the race today as well. Starting to look a little bit more sketchy out there, seeing the lines not as formed as things get shaken up somewhat. Gardner has now jumped to the bottom ahead of Cofield.
Yeah, coming to be about a third of the way through this race, and now we don't have the exact fuel numbers in front of us, but typically here at Daytona, the 2.5-mile ovals, these vehicles run about 30 laps on fuel, so we should be coming up here in the next 10 laps or so, coming up to those pit windows. And the thing that I always think about here, getting on the brakes to pit road speed, it can be a doozy if you haven't practiced it.
For sure. I think that is honestly one of the trickier parts of racing anywhere, is coming off of super speedway from a full green flag run and trying to pit in successfully without spinning that car around. It is definitely a skill, and road racers might go, oh, I've braked many times on heavy braking zones. Not like this, not with a car like this.
No, we had that graphic up of how much these things weigh, about 3,000 pounds, probably as much as Chuck Phelps can bench press, right? And it is just so much to slow down onto pit road. And the tires, they are tiny. The brakes, they are tiny as well. They're not up to temperature. Remember, you haven't even touched the brake pedal around this oval. Just nothing is working when you need it to.
All right, so as you said, lap 21. And we're starting to see some dicing. Will anybody try to go in a little bit earlier than the others, or will they all hold out until the very end of that fuel window to just see if we get that yellow flag? Obviously, with oval racing, you do have to consider when the full course cautions emerge. That will affect your pit strategy greatly, and especially here with a super speedway where, like you were mentioning earlier, Joey, it is all about coming in with a group.
Well, not only coming in with the group, the idea is you come in with the group and then you leave together as a group.
That's
But if
true.
everything gets separated in the middle there, not just getting down to pit road speed, but you still have to hit your box at the perfect time. If you overshoot that, well, guess what? You just blew your exit with your group that you came down. And if you don't go out with the group, you're going to be out in no man's land, and it's going to be, I'm checking 35 seconds before you get picked up by that second group.
Indeed, and yeah, you're right. The second, well, the other cars that dropped off the back that we witnessed later in the early laps were caught up by them. Regis Clark is leading them right now. That group includes Clark, Brandon Evans, Davy Jones is in there, Trevor McManus, Matt Knights, Mike Browning, and Tanner Bethea. No, excuse me, not Tanner Bethea. He's out of this race now. He's in pit lane. But 28 drivers still out on track, but we only have 22 of them in the main group.
Still side by side up front. Brandon Evans, you know, who we've got on screen here, if you look at his sim rig, it's actually moving a little bit, and you say, well, hey, he should probably tighten down that camera mount. You don't want that happening. Well, guess what? Brandon Evans has got a full motion rig as well as those triple monitors. Probably one of the coolest sim rigs out there. And trust me, folks, he also puts in the practice time. One of the fastest I've seen on the oval stuff. Honestly, it's kind of a shame he missed that qualifying grid. I expected him to be up towards the front.
Sometimes you just got to play with the cards you're dealt, though. And hopefully at some point in this race, he'll get an opportunity to get back in it. But that'll frankly probably be due to a caution. And we still haven't seen one yet. Will we actually go fully green on this first round of the season here at Daytona? Not unheard of, as we watch the leaders, Gardner and Drabick, currently on the front row of our two would have been very well-behaved rows up to this point. And yes, we have seen a few things split them up briefly, but they pretty much come back together like they were from Terminator.
T1000's rising from the flames out there. But you just wonder, how long does the well-behaved playground always last? Eventually, a bar fight will erupt. I'm predicting I'm looking at time and scoring 22 cars in this lead pack. I expect we're going to be down to about 15 in the lead pack after the pit stop cycle. You always lose a few. Never anybody, or I shouldn't say, it always happens that the whole group, there's going to be a couple stragglers. So I think we're going to come out with about 15, and then after that, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the race is going to play out.
I wonder what kind of rough neighborhoods you were in that your playgrounds had bar fights, because that one's new to me. But we watched them come around down into turn one once again and back into the banking. But Patrick Drabick on the high side has been leading for some time. Interesting that he switched that up, and nobody really has seemed interested in trying to push him back. In the background, I saw a car really dive down and have to actually get below the yellow line. Now, he's not allowed to take any positions. That's Cody McElwain, and he's going to get back up in time before he's completely dropped by the pack. But that is going to be something that all drivers are watching out for. Is getting out of shape in the group is never a good thing.
Yeah, and I was watching Cody McElwain. He actually went from the top lane down to the bottom lane on the back straightaway and then got a huge shove from behind. I believe it was the number 68 car that got into the back of him. That was Stephen McDonald. So just that top lane down to the bottom lane maneuver didn't work out for Cody McElwain. But the other thing that I'm noticing, Patrick Drabick out front, Jeremy Gardner, Jeremy Mullins, they are all kind of, Jeremy Gardner and Jamie Mullins, they are kind of pushing their way into some clean air. I wonder if they're trying to escape a little bit, get some braking distance room.
It could be. And they are really starting to look like a lot of drivers want to get to the bottom line because there's so few up on the top side. I suspect we're getting ready to see some pit stops. And again, if it's less than 30 laps, then that would mean a two-stopper here.
And folks, I don't have the hard fuel numbers in front of me. We are guesstimating over here. It should be about 30 laps. So we are on the edge of our seat just as much as you are. The one thing that I do see, though, Joe, not nearly as many cars on that top lane. Seems like the migration towards the bottom lane has begun. That's typically showing that you want to come down pit road sooner than later.
Absolutely. We haven't seen the communications yet. The drivers will usually get on the radio or on the text chat with a macro button letting people know that they are going to be coming in this time, just so that nobody trips over one another. But none diving in here on the end of lap 28. Now on into 29, and just about at the halfway mark. Who is going to be the first to blink?
Look at this. I'm only counting 4 cars in that top lane. So if you want to keep the track position, you got to get down on that yellow line. I'm specifically looking at Mullins up there. He still continues to fall back. He's going to fall back all the way to what I think is 7th, maybe even 8th place if his buddy is nice enough to let him in. Yes, the 66 now gets to that bottom lane. You got to think that it's coming sooner than later.
Absolutely. And this is the pit entry here, so let's see what this one holds. Still no calls for pitting in, and still no takers down onto the lane. So everybody stays out to start lap 30. Theoretically, especially since everybody has been running at full tilt, but in the pack, so a number of them should have been able to save at least a little fuel. Theoretically, should be able to pretty easily be able to get to the end. Also seeing Ellingson, Jacob is saying that somebody in front of him is blinking a bit. So that's probably going to send somebody back to the back of the field to try and avoid causing trouble. I think that's Will Bethay.
Yeah, I think he's got the backwards 10 on the roof. It kind of shows the other way around from the typical how you read it on the oval. But it is that number 10 car. And I think the biggest thing with the strategy that we are forgetting is that they need to make it at least to lap 30, right? That is the halfway distance. If they came in before lap 30, that would mean it's going to be a 2-stop race. Well, guess what, folks? They have just completed lap number 30. We are on lap number 31. So if they've made it this far on fuel and they come in now, they will be able to make it all the way to the end.
Indeed. And we need to wait. And there's the call. Patrick Drabick is the first one to say that he's coming in, and he is our leader right now. So let's watch and see who follows. Drabick, part of the Goat Locker Racing team, along with Jacob Ellingson and Jamie Barkus and Cody McElwain, who unfortunately is out of this race. There they go, diving in. A few elect to stay out. Looks like Kostek and Cofield are going to keep going, along with McDonald, Cunningham, and Stubblefield.
Yeah, the majority of the field came down pit road, but definitely about kind of 70-30, and you see everybody, some of them having some troubles getting it slowed down there also. I believe that's Cody McElwain already getting out of his box, but we're going to see exactly, oh, I'm sorry, not getting out of his box. He was one of the cars having troubles entering pit road.
Drabick unfortunately missed his stall too, so a couple drivers finding themselves overshooting. You talked about how bad that can be. And coming off there, oh, somebody's spinning up the tires, having trouble getting going. That was Jamie Mullins. Eventually gets the truck pointed forward.
Got my eye on this second group, and everybody now is coming down pit road here, mainly led by the number 58, as well as this entire group, the 58, the 53, the 3. They are all coming down pit road, and I'm noticing this second group much cleaner than the first group, at least entering pit road. We're going to see if everybody comes to a stop on their stall. Yes, very nicely done from this group.
Okay, are we going to see them separate? We heard Joey earlier predicting that we're going to get cars maybe down to about 15 in the main group, and I think that sounds about right to me. Emerging, Cofield is starting to get up to speed. Kostek is as well. Cunningham. Anybody left still hanging back? Looks like Will Bethay, unfortunately, is one of the few that is going to miss out. He'll be all on his lonesome. And it looks like the leader, Doug Ellingson, oh, he hasn't pitted. Well, that is an interesting one. Okay, maybe trying to trap everybody a lap down.
Very, very interesting. I'm noticing, yeah, hasn't come down at all. This could be to try to bring out a yellow flag if anybody kind of screws up going into pit lane. That's very possible, but unfortunately, he will have to come down pit road, and doing a couple laps by yourself, probably not going to come out in a group, unfortunately.
No, it's a gamble, but it doesn't look like it's going to pay off this time. Cofield, Kostak, Cunningham will wind up leading the field. So that first pitting group, I don't think it quite worked out as well for them. They're starting to catch them, and they will catch them. But they're going to have to try and make a pass on them. And right now, they don't quite look as organized as those top four.
And I think the big shocker for me, as we get the shots of the groups, they're kind of merging right now, but look at the number 66, Jamie Mullins. Remember, he was up in front this entire race. I got to go all the way back to 14th, just barely hanging on to the draft back here. Actually is just getting sucked up right now as we're getting the shots of Ryan Pendleton. Really makes some momentum on the top lane.
Yeah, so that top group has worked themselves out. They were a little spread out just a moment ago, but now that they're together, they're shooting by the top four, which are all the Bandits Motorsports drivers. So they were working together. That was more team tactics heading on past them. I believe that is Goat Locker Racing that has tried to push by them, but they haven't quite fully cleared yet.
Tremendous momentum down the back straightaway, and really they got more organization in that top lane. As you see a little bit further back, a little bit wiggly woggly with that number 5 and also the 27. The 66 has officially joined the party as the caboose with that mustache on the front end there. So now we do have two formed lines, that top lane and the low lane.
Indeed, and the 15 of Barkas, Drabick, and Pendleton. Those are all the Goat Locker racing cars that I was talking about. So 3 versus 4, as far as I can tell. The 85 of Goshen is not part of that team, but he is clinging on to the back of those top 3, hoping maybe he could take advantage of their teamwork. But it's a head-to-head battle between 2 of the juggernauts here in the Goat Locker Racing League.
I always like to give credit where hard work is done, and look at that top lane, Ryan Pendleton. Okay, he is up, I'm counting 9 positions when he is in the lead. He is our biggest mover of tonight's race. I see maybe Jamie Perkins a little bit further in the back of the field is also having a really good day, but it is tough to make up that track position here in super speedway racing. You don't have the brake zones to make those moves. It is all strategically done.
Also, I have to say, good call on your part for the numbering. Maybe too short, but 13 drivers in the main pack up at the front. So Charles Phelps is the next one back, leading a tiny group of Tommy Cook, Mark McCrary, and James Kaufman there in 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Well, Joe, you know how I am with my tarot cards. I met with Miss Cleo here before the race, so I got some insider knowledge.
Well, maybe I'll have to ask for you to get me a reading to see what my next race is going to look like for these guys. I don't think anybody really knows who is going to wind up winning this one. We have seen some players up at the front, but frankly, I mean, I haven't seen anybody that looks like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a guy you got to watch here, because there have been some sleepers, I think, in the mid-pack.
I think when it comes down to it, Joe, it's all about your buddies. And remember the 2 that we talked to pre-race, right? They said Goat Locker Racing, they are going to win this. They are lined up, right? Is the more teammates you have lined together, the better odds you have. And also, shout out to our producer, Eddie Smith. I know that he's worked awesome on this series, made sure to get all these graphics right, make sure we're getting everybody on screen. And I also love seeing all of the competitors on screen from the different types of sim rigs and everything. Eddie's done a great job getting it here on Podium.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do love seeing all the variety of their rigs that we've got there. And talking of setups, I mentioned earlier it's been provided to them, and that is by Premier Racing Setups. Premier Racing Setups is the longest running setup shop on iRacing, established in 2016. They offer many different options to help take your sim racing career to the highest levels. With over 50,000 customers worldwide, they've got the tools you need to compete with the best. And a special thank you to them for donating the setups for the Truck Series. That is definitely one thing that will help get them going, quite literally, out here in this series each and every race. And so far, I haven't seen any or heard anybody complaining about the setup. So I'd say they did a good job.
I think they're fantastic. And we saw one of the cars overheat earlier, but that was one, and he was the most aggressive car, pushing literally up under the spoiler the entire time. Oh, talk about an aggressive push out front. The 07 got into the 23, and we almost saw the side contact at the front of the field.
He's going to move a little bit farther away from him for a moment here to try and keep himself safe. We still got 21 laps to go. We're not done with this one yet. Little bobble there, third back on the high row. And I think that was Jamie Barkus, maybe got a little bit sketchy off the corner. Again, haven't had a single caution yet in this race. So everybody's been going pretty much nonstop except for just a few moments on pit lane where they could take a minute to relax.
Seems like Patrick and Jamie were right when they were talking to us that the majority of these races go green flag. I am really impressed, but the thing that I've noticed, these cars about 4th, 5th, 6th in line, they're starting to poke their nose, try to see a little bit more visually in front of them. And when you are bump drafting, you have to hit in the proper spot on the rear bumper of the car in front of you. If you don't get it, mainly on the inside of the bumper, that is the danger, the no-no zone.
Well, in a normal Daytona 500 or something like that we'd be calling, I'd say 20 laps to go. It's time to go. It's time to make some moves. We still got proportionally a good chunk of this race left, and it's a much smaller group up at the front. At what point would you start trying to shuffle your way to the top here, Joey?
You're right. It's about a third of the race distance left, just under. If you were asking me, it depends where I'm at in this lead group right now. If you were in, call it the top 5 cars, I'm probably waiting until 2 laps to go to start to be a little bit more aggressive. But if you were back where like the number 66 of Jamie Mullins is, remember he was in lead or clean air for the majority of this race. I think you got to be looking more around the lap 5 to 7 marker to start moving your way forward to put you in position by lap number 2.
I think that sounds like a good call to me. We'll see if anybody tries to follow that strategy here, or if somebody's got other ideas out there. Fuel no longer a concern, of course, so pretty much everyone is going to be set to go from here, unless somebody who is up at the front leads the entire way and maybe sucks up too much fuel, but I don't think that's going to be really an issue for our drivers at this stage. The weight of Cunningham down there on the bottom, we could see just kind of sitting patiently. Another one of those cars that Daniel Cunningham has been kind of a dark horse out there. He's been up and around this front group, but again, there have been guys that haven't really showed their hand as much. And I wonder if he's kind of one of those that we haven't been watching, and that plays to his advantage.
Well, speaking of this number 08 driver, I had mentioned Ryan Pendleton had been a big mover, but Daniel Cunningham himself up 8 positions, up 9 positions, depending where they are on the track and the momentum between the lines. So props to the 08 as well, keeping it nice and clean and moving his way forward, putting himself in a position to potentially win this thing.
Just heard Trevor McManus say, let's go to the second lane for a bit. Is he in the group behind them? I'm trying to see if I can find McManus here. No, he is, he is one of the far back groups. So, yeah, it looks like they're trying some different things. I guess it's now kind of desperation mode for some of those drivers because they are well far down. Honestly, the big concern might be is as you see this final group on the lead lap, they look like they're going to get caught by the leaders before this is over.
Definitely. I was taking a look at this group on your screen right here. So this is Brandon Evans out in front. He's leading a pack of about 6 or 7 cars right now. But you see, coming up in the mirror, that is the lead group. They're going to be put a lap down. But what is really interesting about this scenario, usually when you run into lapped cars at Daytona, it's only 1 or 2, maybe 3 at most. This is a completely different sort of situation that it could completely break up that draft pack of the lead group.
Yeah, with so many drivers falling off early and without a single yellow, it's meant, yeah, like you said, we've got a whole pack of cars that they're going to have to try and find their way past. I wonder if both are going to have to figure out a way to go single file by the time they approach them. It might be too close to the finish to try and do something like that, though. But before we do reach that moment of craziness, let's mention another one of our sponsors, the Veterans for Life Foundation. The goal of the Veterans for Life Foundation is to both revitalize communities and support military veterans and their families' successful transition back into civilian life. Through support services, counseling, and education, they provide permanent, affordable housing to veterans and their families. Obviously, that one very, very personal to this league, so a huge thank you to them for helping be a part of this racing series. And let's see which of these veterans will manage to find themselves on top here tonight as well. Down to 14 laps to go at this stage, and they creep ever closer. They now are on the same straightaway, down the back straightaway. They can see the tail end of that final group.
Be really interesting to see how it all plays out. Ride on the hood with Ryan Pendleton, the number 23 car on the outside. Between himself and the number 53, that's Jonathan Cofield that you see just on the left side of your screen, that low lane edging forward through the turns. The momentum down the straightaways goes to the top lane as it was almost dead even at the line there. And something else we haven't even talked about, Joe, it depends which line gets to the start finish first. Remember, it's not coming out of turn 4, but which line gets to that start finish line.
So we've talked a lot about the fact that we've got teams out here, Joey, but what can these teams do to make a difference? Because we've seen them working together when it comes down to it, and, you know, they have to try and do something different to win. What's going to make the difference?
Brass tacks. I mean, it's going to come down to organization, right? Let's say if you've got 4 teammates in line, right? Everybody wants to win the race, but only one person can win the race. If you can organize your 4 teammates not to move at all, that gives your leader the best shot at carrying the momentum. But how often can you get that organization, and how often are those drivers in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th going to stay in line?
Well, we're going to find out soon enough. And up on the top side, big shot of momentum there for Pendleton, who now leads and gets a little shove from Drabick on top of it. Cofield nowhere on this back stretch there in that number 53 on the bottom. The 3 of Kostek is the one behind him. One of his teammates pushing him, Cunningham, 3rd in line, also a teammate. And McDonald is the next one back, who is also in there in that number 68. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, still as they were after the pit stop. I don't think those 4 have given up those positions on the bottom line since that pit stop.
Well, and I saw that Gardner and Stephen McDonald coming off at turn number 4 through the tri-oval had a big time door slam. So these cars, we talked, tires, not really worth much here at Daytona. You kind of argued the point. Now that we're getting late in the run, I wonder how much confidence these drivers really have changing lanes.
Still at about 96 Fahrenheit, so it hasn't really gone up tremendously out there. And it is still at these 13 trucks. They have had Davy Jones join them, but he's a lap down. So that could play a spoiling factor in itself, depending on who he's teammates with. I need to go check that. Because a lapped car, honestly, could be bad news for everybody. Because whoever he's teammates with, well, I mean, Davy's the perfect teammate because he can't win. All he can do is basically be the wingman.
Are you saying that Davy Jones is down in the locker, a lap down?
He is indeed. He's going to have to try and break the surface if he wants that back.
Well, we watched the 23 and the 07 really with a monster head of steam down the back straightaway. We've seen it really ever since the pit stops. They are opting to choose that top lane. They clear the bottom lane several times throughout these laps, but they are opting to stay organized on the top. That is the hill that they are going to die on tonight.
You know, it never fails when I try and make a point that reality likes to just refute it. Davy Jones has no teammates out here. He's on a team of himself. So, he's not going to be able to help anyone. I guess then his friends, in that case, will say, whoever he chooses to try and work together. But yeah, man, both teams just locking this down, not letting anybody through. We've got to go 3 wide, which at Daytona can be a little bit iffy sometimes.
Agreed. 2 wide is plenty comfortable, right? We've raced 2 wide pretty much this entire race. But as soon as you go 3 wide, things start to get squeezed up a little bit. And 4 wide is possible, but usually it ends in tears.
I've seen some series do it lap after lap after lap. I know the Coke series, the eNASCAR series, sees them do it frequently, but that's a whole nother level of racing up there. These drivers, as skilled as they are, will be mighty brave to try and attempt that. Also, we want to mention another sponsor, Cruisin' Classics, from my neck of the woods, located in Columbus, Ohio, just north of me. Cruisin' Classics has a beautiful 56,000 square foot showroom filled with hundreds of unique automobiles. There is something for everybody out of their hand-picked selection of muscle cars and hot rods. Come on down to visit the facility today or check out their website, cruisinclassicsinc.com. I might have to go up there and try that. It's a bit of a drive, 2 hours, but certainly sounds like it'd be really neat to go check out what kind of goodies they've got in there.
Well, you said a 50,000 square foot warehouse. Now, when I was working for StopTech back down in Southern California, we moved into a warehouse that was about 75,000 square feet, and I wanted to open up a go-kart facility. That might be a business opportunity, Joe.
Hey, I like it. I like the way you think. Away from the classic cars, though.
Yes,
as far
very
as they
much
can put
so.
them. But man, down to 7 to go now out in this first race of the season. Pendleton keeps getting his nose ahead, but that's down the backstretch. Where it's going to matter is on the front stretch through the tri-oval.
And I just saw the 27 of Jacob Ellingson poke his nose in 3 wide in NASCAR 4. I thought we were about to have a wreck, but I think it's just showing that these drivers a little bit further in the back, they're starting to get anxious. They want to make the moves, and see, look at him. He sees this sucker hole opening in the middle, and he's just looking so close to it.
Oh, he is thinking about it. He's going to take it. The 85 is up high. He gets the notice from his spotter, thankfully. And now we are starting to see the aggression come out. And some drivers are following as well. The number 5 going to get himself into there. Will we see this carry on up to the front and scraping the wall on that 3rd lane? That surely is going to slow him down.
Yeah, the 85 of James Goshen, he is just stuck up there with no buddies, and he's got to be careful how much he comes down the racetrack here. He's trying to side draft to keep the momentum, but he's still 3 wide in the tri-oval. You see James here just trying to get the draft back, and now I think he's going to merge into the top lane while the 66 chooses low.
Well, the paint may have been scraped off of one car, but if you want good-looking paint on some of your stuff, check out Red Beard Design Company. Red Beard Design Co. is a brand design and creative agency out of Greenfield, Indiana. They do brand identity, illustration, advertisements, apparel, packaging, and posters. All of GLR's logos since day one are the creation of Red Beard Design Company, so when you see GLR anywhere, you're seeing a Red Beard design. And it's definitely some good-looking stuff they have put together here as we cross the line now with 4 laps to go. And, you know, we've been saying, you know, the laps are coming down. There's no cautions. But, you know, with the laps coming down to it, if we do get that caution, and I think they're more likely now with what we're seeing, Joey, we have those green-white checkers.
We have 2 green-white checkers available to us, and it has to happen before we see the white flag, folks. So if we get a yellow flag, from here on out, we should be going into bonus time. It'll be really interesting to see if any strategy cards are played out if we do get that yellow.
All right. It is basically from here on out is where those yellows will bring out the GWC. So everybody does have to mind themselves. And as soon as I say that, there it goes. One truck into the wall, some others into the grass, and that's going to spit them across it into the trioval. Eventually, it winds up with Mullins fully turning McDonald. That took a long time for the yellow because everybody was staying pointed forward and nobody was going fully perpendicular.
And, is well off of the racing line and whatnot. So we do finally have this yellow flag that we've been talking about. Let's watch and see exactly how it develops. Keep an eye on the 08 car of Daniel Cunningham here. See exactly what brings this all out, Joe.
I think he gets tipped. It looks like, yeah, he's going to get hit in the side by what looks like Jamie Barkas in that 15. And that's what kicks it off. But I think Barkas even had a little bit of help himself. Yeah, this was complete dominoes. This is on board Stephen McDonald, who is going to get hit by Jacob Ellington. So you're going to see him hook right hard.
Yeah, let's see if it comes from the back of this red 68 car. I know that white and green number 66 has been wanting to move his way forward, and I can't really tell if it comes from the back, but it certainly looks like Stephen McDonald goes up the racetrack, makes contact with somebody, and then it's just all dominoes after that. This is the shot that's really going to tell the tale.
Yeah, it's net code with Ellington. Yeah, there it is right there. And that is, again, the nature of the beast racing on the internet, that you need to leave maybe just a slightly bigger margin than you would in real life. And when you're dealing with super speedway racing, the margins are infinitesimally small.
The best way to explain that, folks, is that, yes, we didn't see physical contact, but like Joe was saying, everybody has their own internet connection, so some of those might not be as good as others, and it's up to iRacing to really decipher where the cars are. Sometimes they can overlap a little bit.
Indeed. And that's why you saw a car get hooked, unfortunately, and that is going to bring us the first green-white checkers of 2. Now, for those that don't know how these work, essentially, the race goes into overtime, and now the drivers will get 2 laps to try and finish it. If the yellow comes out before they get the white flag, they'll go back to another green-white checker. They'll try again. If they manage to get to the white flag, then it doesn't matter if anybody wrecks. The race is official, and they will have to race to the line from there and see who can win this one. But drivers have to get to that white flag in the first place, and we've seen in the past, sometimes that is easier said than done, especially since now this means everybody's going to be packed up, and we'll have yet more drivers on the lead lap in contention.
I think the other thing that this yellow flag really brings out, well, as we see some strategy cards play out, I think these are mainly the cars that picked up damage, or I should say the trucks that picked up damage. They're going to come down and get as much of that fixed as possible. But remember, we had a couple groups that had lost that draft pack of that lead pack. It brings them right back into contention. So some of the days that might have thought to be done, getting a second life.
Now, while Jacob Ellington is in pit lane needing to take repairs because of that incident, he was given the end-of-line penalty for causing the accident. That's another thing they've introduced this season to try and keep drivers honest. So if you cause the incident, according to the stewards, then they're going to send you to the end of the line on the restart. Here, this wouldn't mean as much if you could get that car back out there to run with them. But it's some other shorter ovals. It's certainly going to really hurt late in the race like this.
Yeah, it definitely can. But I think that just the yellow flag right now for all of these competitors, it allows them an opportunity to breathe, right? Catch their breath. They've literally done 60 laps out there of nonstop bump drafting. Doesn't seem that intense, but trust me, the heart rate is going. You're gripping the wheel incredibly tight. It's nice to be able to actually kind of relax just a touch.
I think just, yeah, allowing your brain a moment to stop also probably is great. You can try and collect your surroundings a bit more, figure out how the race is going, and try and plan out how you want to do this as well, because now you've got time to think about it. And this is also probably going to shake up quite a bit of those teammates, Joey. Remember, they had locked down those top positions before, And I believe this should disperse them somewhat.
You're right. You know, if you were lined up nose to tail, well, the restarts are going to happen side by side. So it's up to that order that they crossed that yellow flag for iRacing to basically say, hey, are you going to start on the top line, the low line? How are you going to meet up with your buddies?
Pendleton's going to restart on the low line. Cofield will be on the top side. We're checking on the teammate situation once again with my cheat sheet here. And I think that will split them up. Yeah, because Pendleton, I think, is... No, excuse me, Pendleton is not on the same team as him. So, no, that should still be right. It'll take me a moment to really try and sort through this. So maybe I shouldn't try and do this now that we're double file, because it is one to go and the lights are out.
And I think we've talked about all of these guys up front, you know, and I talked about Brandon Evans before, but that number 39 car that missed the start is going to be starting in 18th position. He has been running a very, very lonely race this entire night. I wonder if he can capitalize on this opportunity.
All right, so I can confirm first and second rows are caddy corner as far as teammates go. So if they want to get with their teammates, or at least those that are in front of them, they might have to try and swap. I don't know if I would try that right at the start, but we'll see. I'm sure everybody is with communication with their teammates over Discord or various voice chat services to try and coordinate things here. But you remember, you're only coordinated with yourself, not necessarily with your rivals.
It'll be really interesting here, and typically how it works out in the real world is they allow one of the teammates to get a better jump than the rest, and since everybody's running restrictor plates, it kind of allows that acceleration zone to play out a little bit more difficult here in the sim.
Here we go. Pace car is in. Will we only get this one green-white checkers, or are we going to be heading for another? As the green flag is out, attempt number 1 is underway. It's a huge jump for the bottom line, and in fact, they're going to hit side to side there on the second row.
Yeah, I saw Cofield and Drabic. They were trying to side draft each other, and I think it was Drabic that came down, maybe had a little bit of side contact, but here we go. It is on for the front. Pendleton, he's the car outside on the lead lane.
Big push there from the bottom. Drabic giving a shove to Pendleton. He has got a huge run. The 15 is with him. That's the teammates all together, and they have got huge speed here on the back. If they can make it to the white flag, it's going to be one to go, and we're official.
Ryan Pendleton leading the way, and it's really that low lane starting to accelerate out. Oh, a little bit of side-to-side contact back there for the top lane as well, but we reach the white flag. It will be settled one lap from now.
I see some attempts at some side drafting there. It's gonna get tricky. Everybody's getting very, very close, trying to use every ace up their sleeve. But right now, the bottom side still holds the advantage with Pendleton leading.
And it's really those top two pushing out front, Pendleton and Drabic. Can Cofield in that top lane do anything? And now we got separation up front. We're going to go 3 wide, potentially down the back straight. Big time pushing between the 23 and now the 07 out front.
I think it was a bad push. Drabic, unfortunately, got a little bit loose there with Pendleton in front of him. In fact, he's going to hit him down across the line. He drifts back up. Now everybody abandons as he gets turned. It's going to be the big one right at the end of the race. The 3 emerges ahead, and Kostek wins it.
The black 3 takes the checkered flag as chaos ensues behind. Michael Kostek wins the first round of the Goat Locker Racing Series.
Unbelievable. Kostek just emerged from the smoke, and sometimes you have to have a little bit of lady luck on your side. The wreck literally happened in front of him, and he even had to check up. Watch on this replay. It's not often that you get off the throttle and still win the race here.
You see, he just got blocked up, but thankfully the seas parted for the number 3, just like Moses coming back. Everything worked out for him, and he claims that checkered flag. And look at all of the wrecked trucks behind. But you're right, Joe. Just luck was on his side.
With Timothy Stubblefield, again, there's those drivers we were talking about that we didn't really talk about all that much, and somehow he wound up in second place but that is the nature of Daytona. Watch from Drabick as, again, a little bit of a bad push. He thinks he's up high. There's the block, but it fails as he already had a nose inside him. And once that happened, all hell breaks loose.
And I tell you what, I think that Michael Kostic has to thank the 92 of Timothy Stubblefield, because that 92 gave the 3 a huge shot after that initial contact. I think that's the only momentum that took him to the checkered flag. Otherwise, it might have been the 5, or I should say the 42 of Jeremy Gardner that had a huge head of steam. Watch this bump draft as things clear up here, Joe, out of 4.
Stubblefield coming from, looks like 4th in line. So yeah, he was well back there. Was thinking just a top 5 would be a great finish. No, how about a podium here today? Oh, and he had a fight for it across the line. It was mighty tight across there, and it wound up being all of a few hundredths of a second between himself and Jeremy Gardner beside him at the line. Let's take a look at how it all finished there after all was said and done. Kostek, your winner, with Stubblefield coming from 13th on the grid to take a podium finish. Jeremy Gardner wound up in P3. Ryan Pendleton did manage to finish decently high up, considering he was involved in that wreck at the end. He was 4th. George Jewell was P5. Charles Feltz managed to go from 17th to 6th, and James Goshen wound up in 7th. Timothy Cook was P8 today. Cody McElwain was 9th, and Brandon Evans rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, we have Mark McCrary. Alan Marshall here in 12th. Will Bethea finishing in 13th. Patrick Drabick, unfortunately, falls all the way back to 14th after getting spun there. Regis Clark in 15th. Jamie Perkins in 16th. Mike Browning finishing 17th. Stephen McDonald back here at 18th. Jonathan Cofield, another one of those front runners, winds up 19th. Davy Jones in 20th.
21st goes to James Kaufman with Jamie Mullins 22nd. I don't know why I keep saying David Cunningham. Daniel Cunningham is his name, was 23rd. Trevor McManus was the last one on the lead lap in 24th. Matt Knights was P25 with Jamie Barkas in 26, and Doug Ellingson 27th. Jacob Ellingson right behind him, 28th, but multiple laps difference, strangely enough. Tanner Bethea lost his engine early. Plumstead was a did not start. And that's going to take us to our winner, Michael Kostek, who I'm sure is just as beside himself after that one. Michael, we all know that it's Daytona, that these things can happen, but I mean, how thrilled were you when you crossed that line with a checkered flag? Michael, you have a
Yeah,
copy? Oh, there
yeah,
you
you got
go.
me.
Yep, we
Yeah,
got
I
you.
mean, that's not how I seen it playing out there. But I usually am the one getting caught up in them things, so it was nice to be able to squeeze through there. But yeah, I was kind of pretty surprised there whenever I crossed the line first.
You and the Bandits gang look like you were all working very well together. It was kind of your team versus Goat Locker Racing. What was most of the conversation like between you and the teammates leading up to those final laps?
I mean, it was just kind of trying to figure where to push to get the best run since we were on the inside. The outside seems to always be the best in the trucks, but trying to get the push and then cool off the engine a little bit so I didn't overheat. And just kind of try to time it right on the last lap, but keep him kind of in the front row so they couldn't clear him. It was just kind of a chess match there.
You mentioned that these usually don't go for well. I'm assuming you mean, super speedways. We go to Phoenix, which is a much shorter track. Do you see that one as being kind of more your bailiwick?
Yeah, yeah, I enjoy Phoenix a lot. I like the flatter tracks, a lot of braking and kind of just driving a little bit more. I just not a big fan of the super speedway racing, but it is what it is. So finally survived one and picked a good spot to finish.
Well, congratulations. Sometimes Lady Luck smiles on you, and tonight she has, sir.
Thank you.
Michael Kostek, your winner here at Daytona for the first round of the season. He was followed and, well, pushed home by Timothy Stubblefield. And let's shove Joey Atterbury over to talk to him.
Well, Timothy Stubblefield, congratulations on the second place finish here at Daytona.
Thank you. It was crazy right there at the end.
Yeah, so talk to me about that final lap. Were you expecting it to erupt off of four like that?
All my experience, I figured something's going to happen. I was, before that last caution came out, I thought, I'm going to sit in the back. It's going to happen. That caution came out, kind of got me up front. I was like, something happens, just keep it wide open, hope for the best.
Well, I also noticed you are a privateer out here. You don't have any teammates, so to speak. Was that maybe a detriment today, or did you have some buddies out there that you could count on to work with?
The Bandits Motorsports let me run with them. Um, let me, so that I kind of had a team to work with out there a little bit. So that helps a lot. I was behind them on that last lap.
Now, Daytona, it's the super speedway. We kind of know that it's a different type of racing than all of the other ovals. Do you have maybe a preference? Do you like short tracks? Do you like mile and a half? Do you like super speedways? Where do you think going in the schedule here that you're going to be strong?
Um, any track I'm good at, I like, but usually my luck is at the super speedways. Sometimes superways, I'm up front, then I get wrecked. So I kind of like super speedways, and mile and a halves is about where I like to be at.
Well, the floor is yours, Timothy. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Um, definitely the sponsors of the league, Jim Paint and Promotions, Premier Racing Setups give us a good setup right tonight. Veterans for Life Foundation, um, and my family and friends that come up and watch all these leagues I do, and y'all put on a good podcast.
Well, that was the driver of the number 92, having a fantastic day today, up 11 positions to finish in second, Timothy Stubblefield.
And it was close at the line, mere inches for third position for Jeremy Gardner, nearly beating out Stubblefield. Jeremy, you were also really in the thick of all that and out towards the front, honestly, for much of this race. Is it frustrating to be so close yet oh so far?
Nah, man, not really. I had a blast, honestly. A bunch of new faces in this league this season. And that race was an absolute blast. I mean, literally everybody was on their P's and Q's until the last green white checkered. I mean, that was honestly the funnest Daytona race I've had in a while. So I have no complaints.
Oh, glad to hear you coming out of it in high spirits. Another one of the drivers coming out there with a lot of teammates, obviously. How important is it coming into it for you and your team to prepare? Do you do much trying to practice together, or does everybody just show up and go?
I mean, you got a bunch of them practicing together, and then you got some people that just show up and go. But like I said, I can't complain one bit. That was one hell of a race, and I'm honestly happy for the whole GLR crew right now. Like I said, a bunch of new faces. I'm super stoked for everybody. That was a hell of a race.
Well, I got to say, this is definitely a good start to the season. Looking ahead at the schedule, is there any track in particular that you've got highlighted on your calendar that you can't wait for?
Every one of them. This whole group makes every track fun, whether I love it or hate it. This group makes every track fun. So, uh, yeah, I'm ready for all of them.
I like that answer. That's a good way to answer that one. But I mean, you're on the podium at the very least. Who helped you put there?
Well, first and foremost, the GLR crew. They have put in a lot of work behind the scenes to make this league successful. I joined this league about a season ago. I won the championship last year. This is definitely my favorite group to run with. Uh, they got a hell of a group of sponsors. I'd like to give a shout out to Jam Printing and Promotions for all they do. They sent us a bunch of merch, and I highly appreciate all that. We got Premier Racing setups on board this season. They put out great setups. So if anybody's looking, definitely hit up Premier. Veterans for Life Foundation for all they do, for the veterans and give back to the community for sure. Cruising Classics, Right Now Roofing, and Redbeard Design. So just like to give a big, big, big shout out to them this year.
Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, Jeremy. That was Jeremy Gardner in the number 42 truck, finishing third today. Well, Joey, I am really looking forward to what the rest of this series has in store because, like they were saying, what a way to start the season.
You know, super speedways, they're always kind of a little bit of a crapshoot when you come down to it, and especially when you get these big time draft fests, you see a lot of yellow flags. Well, it was the exact opposite from what we saw today. It was just tremendous green flag racing the entire time. Some good strategy cards being played, some groups from the back that lost the draft that ended up making their way back forward, but ultimately it was clean racing. It did erupt a little bit there at the end. But I mean, we're talking the final 5 laps of a 60-lap super speedway race. Props to the competitors.
Exactly. And as we said, we've got more coming up because next race is going to be at Phoenix, and that will be a week from now on Friday, January 26th. Once again, when we're back at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Make sure and tune in with us for that one. But also, a big thank you goes to the team today, Eddie, Joey, and Dougie. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.